The dynamic between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White is very interesting because clearly it's a relationship with a basis of respect. I mean, when Stephanie White was hired, Clark was thrilled, super excited. And coach said all the right things about coming in and coaching the Fever and coaching Caitlin Clark. Then fairly early in the season, I would say there was a bit of a philosophical divide, but it never got to be completely worked out, right? And it wasn't as if they were at odds, but I noticed when they would talk about things, and for instance, when Caitlin Clark had come back from one of her injuries.
The relationship between Caitlin Clark and Coach Stephanie White has always been interesting, mainly because it began with so much respect and excitement. When Stephanie White was hired, Caitlin was genuinely thrilled. She looked happy, hopeful, and ready to work with someone who seemed to understand her game. White said all the right things at the beginning about coaching the Fever with passion and helping Clark grow. Everything looked positive, and fans believed the two would build a strong partnership. But as the season moved forward, subtle differences began to appear. It wasn't a fight, it wasn't angry, but it was clear that Clark and White didn't fully agree on how she should play. It was more like two people seeing the same picture, but imagining two different ways to complete it. That kind of difference doesn't explode overnight. It builds slowly, layer by layer. And because Caitlin Clark is not only a talented player but a strong-minded competitor, those early disagreements mattered. One of the first visible signs came when Caitlin returned from an early injury. Reporters asked her about playing with teammate Erica Wheeler, about her adjustment, and about how she fit into the team's system now that she was back. Clark politely repeated some of White's coaching points, like improving as a screener and learning to play more off the ball. But then, with a tone that was impossible to ignore, she made her own belief very clear. "I'm at my best with the ball in my hands." She didn't say it with anger. She didn't say it to insult anyone. But the message was strong, direct, and completely honest. And because it was said live on national television, it carried even more weight. It was almost like Clark drew a line in the sand, not aggressively but confidently, stating exactly who she is as a player. For fans and analysts watching, the tension was impossible to miss. It was the first major moment where the public could see the difference in basketball philosophy between Clark and her coach. To understand why that moment mattered, you have to go back a little further. Before the first big Liberty game of the season, White had talked about giving Clark some relief by having her play off the ball more. She framed it as a way to help the team flow better on offense, and also give Clark a break from constant pressure. It sounded reasonable, at least from a coaching standpoint. But Caitlin's response, again polite, still revealed a quiet resistance. She agreed playing off the ball could help, but she firmly repeated that her best basketball happens when she is the one initiating the action. That is where her instincts, her rhythm, and her creativity come alive. So you had two smart basketball minds, both incredibly competitive, seeing the game differently. White wanted to build a system where everyone shared responsibilities. Clark wanted the ball because that's where she is most dangerous. These weren't small differences. They were core beliefs, the kind that shape games, seasons, and careers. Fans noticed. And once fans notice something, especially in a sports world that thrives on storylines, things can spiral quickly. People online began pushing the idea that White was limiting Clark, stifling her talent, or even trying to force her to change her identity on the court. That wasn't true, but the narrative spread like wildfire. Every comment White made, even innocent ones, became exaggerated and twisted. Her praise for other players like Kelsey Mitchell was seen by some fans as criticism of Clark, even when it couldn't have been further from the truth. When the Fever won games without Clark while she was injured, the story became even louder. Some people claimed the team played better without her. Others said White was proving she didn't need Clark to succeed. In reality, Clark celebrated the team's success. She supported her teammates and even shared a message praising her coach. But social media rarely waits for facts. It builds stories from pieces, sometimes accurate, sometimes not, and those stories shape public perception. Stephanie White eventually addressed all the noise when she appeared on Sue Bird's Bird's Eye View podcast. She spoke openly about her relationship with Clark, the respect she had for her, and her coaching philosophy. One of the most impactful things she said was that Caitlyn was the centerpiece of everything we do. That recognition mattered. It reminded everyone that White understood Clark's importance, not only as a player but as a force in women's basketball. But immediately after acknowledging Clark's value, White doubled down on another principle. You have to coach and challenge your best players. That sentence was the heart of her coaching worldview. To White, superstar players are not exempt from being pushed. If anything, they must be pushed harder, not out of disrespect, but because their potential is higher and their influence is larger. To her, challenging Caitlyn was a sign of respect, not conflict. White also revealed something about herself that surprised many people. She said she had the same psycho-competitiveness that Clark has. She wasn't insulting Clark, she was relating to her. She was saying she understood that fire, that obsession with winning, because she felt it too. It was a way of saying, I get you. I know how your mind works, because mine works that way too. This was important because people often forget how emotional and personal competition can be. When two people both have that kind of intensity, both want to win more than anything, and both believe deeply in their own approach, there will naturally be friction. But friction doesn't always mean dislike. Sometimes it means you are dealing with two people who care deeply, think deeply, and want the absolute best. And then there's Caitlyn's own history. Even back at Iowa, she resisted limitations. When someone questioned her deep shooting range, she famously referenced Steph Curry and said, "You don't tell Steph not to shoot those." That wasn't arrogance. It was confidence shaped by years of proving her instincts right. Clark has always believed in trusting her natural talent, and that belief has shaped her entire playing style. White, meanwhile, believed Clark needed to evolve. She wanted her to improve off the ball, to become a better catch-and-shoot player, and most importantly, to recognize when to give up the ball to her teammates. These weren't small requests. They were major changes to Clark's long-held identity as a player. To White, the changes were necessary for the Fever to become a balanced, winning team. To Clark, they challenged who she had always been on the court. Despite everything, public rumors, speculation, misinterpreted comments, there was one important truth. The off-court relationship between Clark and White remained good. They trusted each other. They liked each other. They respected each other's roles. What fans saw were disagreements about strategy, not personal dislike. Unfortunately, injuries prevented us from ever truly seeing how their partnership might have developed. Clark's season-ending groin injury came right when it seemed the team was finally finding its rhythm. The Fever were starting to string together wins. Clark was hobbled but still fighting. The team was improving. And then everything came to a halt. Without Clark, White continued coaching at an elite level, proving her ability to adapt and rally the team. With Clark's support from the sidelines, the Fever looked more cohesive and confident. This raised another fascinating layer to their dynamic. The team saw what they could achieve without Clark on the court, and Clark saw what the team could accomplish as a group. Both perspectives matter. Both perspectives influence how they move forward. So now, the biggest question is what happens next. Can Clark's strong desire to have the ball in her hands blend with White's belief in a more balanced system? Can White challenge Clark without making her feel restricted? Can they develop a rhythm built on both trust and compromise? Both women are incredibly competitive. Both are brilliant. Both want to win more than anything. And both know the success of the Fever depends on finding harmony in their philosophies. If they can blend their approaches, the Fever could become a dynasty, one of the great stories in WNBA history. If they can't, the tension will remain one of the league's most compelling storylines. Either way, the future between Clark and White is full of possibility, pressure, and excitement. The unresolved tension isn't a bad thing. It's the sign of two extraordinary people trying to build something big, something powerful, something championship-worthy. And the entire world is watching to see what they create together.